Hi, my name is Zach and I live with OCD, and I'm the founder of the Conquer Your OCD Crash Course. Crush your intrusive thoughts and reduce your anxiety in 90 days. And I'm guessing that if you're here in this webinar right now, you are struggling with OCD, anxiety, and intrusive thoughts just like I was back in 2016, and you just want to feel good again. You just want to feel like yourself again. I know what that feels like. I can remember being flooded with intrusive thoughts in 2016, 2017, and just wanting to have my old life back. And so I want to ask you this question. What if I told you that despite me living with OCD, just like you, I experience next to no intrusive thoughts, and I basically have low to no anxiety? On a scale from 1 to 10, I maybe fluctuate between 1 to 3 in anxiety. Would this sound too good to be true? Well, most people would say yes, and I certainly would have said yes, especially back in 2016 and 2017. Would have never thought that this was possible. But the reality is that it is true. Since being diagnosed with OCD in 2016, I learned the not so well-known method to reclaim your life from OCD and live with a brain that doesn't feel like a prison cell 24/7. And this is exactly why I created this webinar. I don't want you to suffer anymore. Instead, I want to teach you my simple 3-step formula on how to reduce intrusive thoughts and decrease your anxiety in 90 days. So no matter where you are at in your journey, there is something beneficial and useful that you can take from this webinar that will help you in your recovery. Because let's be honest, at this point, if you're anything like me, maybe you've tried recovery methods that didn't really work. Maybe you've worked with therapists or read multiple books on OCD and you still feel stuck. I get that because I was that person. I felt stuck for years, trapped in my own brain, and it was horrible. So I want to teach you the secrets to OCD recovery from someone who actually knows what it's like to live with OCD. There's nothing else out there. There's very few people that live with OCD actually out there helping others with OCD. And that's why I put together this webinar. And the truth about it is that therapists can be such an important part to the recovery journey, but they can also be super hard to relate to. The majority of therapists are generalists, which means that they don't specialize in the treatment of OCD. So they'll tell you that they know how to treat it, but they don't. And this can be really dangerous because they don't actually have a clue on how to actually treat OCD, and this will keep you stuck. For the therapists that do know how to treat OCD, the majority of them don't live with OCD, so they don't know what it's like to live with it day in and day out and struggle with intrusive thoughts and feelings that we don't want to have. Plus, let's be honest, it can be super scary to open up to a therapist about our thoughts when we know that they don't have OCD and we're afraid that they might judge us for the thoughts that we're having because the thoughts can feel scary. But I do live with OCD. I do have and have had intrusive thoughts, and I know what it feels like to feel ashamed, embarrassed, guilty, frustrated, anxious, and at times depressed from the thoughts that we're experiencing. So I'm going to share my screen here. In this webinar, I'm going to break this thing down into 3 sections to make this super digestible for you. The first thing over here on the left that we're going to do is we're going to understand how the OCD cycle works. I'm telling you right now, OCD works in a predictable cyclical pattern. And as OCDers, it's on us. It's critical that we understand how the OCD cycle works so that when OCD tries to trip us up, we can recognize that it's trying to play a trick on us and we can step out of the OCD cycle. Once we master this, we stop getting stuck. Second, in the middle, I'm going to teach you the 4 core mindsets that you have to deploy over and over and over again during your recovery journey to retrain how your brain interprets and responds to intrusive thoughts so that resisting compulsions becomes easier and easier. Could you imagine a world in which you don't feel like you're white knuckling trying to resist a compulsion? That's possible. And these are the mindsets that I still use in my life, which has given me freedom from OCD. And lastly, over here on the right side, I want to teach you what my 3-step formula is to reduce intrusive thoughts, identify your core fear, attack that core fear through scripting work, stop compulsing, reduce anxiety, reduce your intrusive thoughts. I want to teach you this. And this is the big announcement for you right now at the start of this webinar. So please give me your full attention just for this little second here. If you stay for the full duration of the webinar, I'm going to give you a huge gift that I don't provide anywhere else. Not on Instagram, not on my podcast, not on my website, only here. And I'm doing this as a token of my appreciation for you actually carving out time to invest in your recovery. So please make sure that you stay all the way to the end of the webinar to receive that offer. Now, before we jump into the core of the webinar today, I actually want to take a few minutes and I want to do two things. The first thing is I want to prove to you that this webinar is actually going to be worth your time. So I'm going to show you some texts and some messages that I've received from other clients that have been through the full course because components in this webinar come from the full course. What I think are the most important, some of the most important parts are in this webinar. They come from the full course. So I want to, it's easy for me to say it's worth your time, but I want to prove that to you from clients who have just texted me out of the blue, going through this, going through the full course. And then I also want to tell you who I am and why I can help you. I think that that's going to be a really important part of this. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up some of these texts and I want to talk through them with you. So starting on the left side, this is actually a text from Blake, one of my clients who's been through the program and just received this out of the blue. It was awesome. He goes, your program is above and beyond all other programs because it's raw and real. You don't hide your taboo thoughts. You tell all of us what was really going on in your head. Additionally, he goes on to say you have OCD, so the scripts and examples that you give actually playing out your ERP are extremely helpful. I never understood how to talk back to this disorder. Not until you actually told me how to be sarcastic with OCD did I truly understand how much I had been white knuckling. OCD therapists can talk about this all the time, but they don't explain what that means, and you do. So I'm super proud of that. Just because, you know, from my perspective, that's why I put the course together. There's nothing else out there like this from somebody with a lived experience. And candidly, I was self-conscious. I'm like, I know that what I've done has helped me. Can I help other people? And it's just been a blessing to see that that is the case. Another text, can't remember exactly who this was from, but they were just super, again, just on cloud nine. And they said, to sum it all up, you have OCD, you're 100% real. You give fantastic examples of how to talk back to OCD and even tell us everything going on in your head. This makes me feel more open to talk to you and trust you because I then realize you are no different from me. Because I trust you, I fully give myself to your program. Because I do that, I start to see change. So that was a wonderful text to receive out of blue. This one's from Juan. Juan said, working with you has helped me recognize my core fear that OCD thrives on, which is something I didn't experience working with therapists or providers, even those specializing in the OCD treatment. Again, I'm not trying to attack therapists. I think therapists can be a wonderful part of the journey. I just know that what I teach is a little different. It's a little more unique. It's not so talked about, and it's very helpful. He goes on to say, the core fear work is what motivates me to gain momentum in my recovery process, and I'm so grateful for you. My overall anxiety has decreased, and I found that self-awareness is one of the biggest assets in recovery. So it just makes me so freaking excited to be able to put clients through the course and everything, some of the core components that you're going to learn about in the webinar today, and get them on their path to recovery. Taneeth over here on the right, he basically says when he came across my masterclass, he was skeptical that it was just going to be another course. And that was one of the biggest things for me with the creation of the course. And obviously the components I'm going to share in the webinar is that I didn't want that to be the thing. I wanted it to be something, again, that he goes on to say holds my attention, and that it's not just a brief outline of what OCD is and how to treat it, but instead it goes in depth. And that was my goal and my plan. I don't want to just have another e-course out there or a webinar out there. I wanted something that was actually going to be beneficial. He goes on to say, it's clear that Zach is a sufferer himself, knows exactly how it feels living with this. This is something that makes his course unique. Obviously not as a therapist, but someone who lives with it on a day-to-day basis. And that was, you know, again, that was the point. I was very self-conscious. I'm not a therapist. Can I help people? I know that what the work that I did on myself made it so that I have next to no intrusive thoughts and low anxiety, and I live a happy life. Am I qualified to help others? And, you know, I think some encouragement from my wife and other people really got me to realize, okay, I need to do this. Again, some other messages to share. This one in the middle makes me so freaking happy. This is from Olivia. She goes, hey, I just finished the OCD course. It was so insanely helpful, and I'm so grateful you've made such an in-depth resource for us. Thank you for putting in the hard work with yourself so you could help us do the same. Over here, the bottom left, Catherine, the modules are great. I've listened to a lot. I was able to put them on while driving to and from school. It also made me realize that I have so many different themes, right? So light bulb moment after light bulb moment, which is what we need to have as we're going through the journey. I can't remember exactly who this message was from, but hey, Zach, I'm about 3/4 of the way through the class. I completely understand why you pushed me to join. Sometimes I'm like, hey, I really think that the course can be helpful. Again, components from the course I'm going to talk about in the webinar. And sometimes people just need that little extra push because let's be honest, us OCDers, we doubt a lot of things. Is this actually going to help me or is this just going to be another course? And I think that, people really feel that it takes it to a different level. This message just like hit me right at my heart. This one is from, I think this one was from Chandler. He goes, you've been really good to me, even though this is really hard and takes a lot of time and effort. When our sessions are over, I will miss talking. It's been really good to have another guy in my life that I can talk to about this who really understands. I know you have a ton of clients, but at this point you're a friend. And if you ever need anything throughout your life, I hope I can be there to reciprocate. Just amazing. I feel so blessed, to be in this situation. And then some other messages here, but big thing is, components from the full course I'm going to be talking about in the webinar now. And I just want you to know that for the time that you're about to invest, you are going to get something out of this. Something you're going to learn in this webinar is going to help you in your recovery journey. And now I want to tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm going to go over to the next slide. So not only am I the founder of the Conquer Your OCD crash course, Crush Your Intrusive Thoughts and Reduce Your Anxiety in 90 Days, but I am also an author and the podcast host of the fastest growing OCD podcast in the world. It's called the You're Not Alone podcast. You can look it up wherever you stream your podcasts. And I am absolutely dedicated to your recovery because just like you, I live with OCD. I know what it feels like. I know what it's like to feel trapped and stuck in your own brain. And I want to get you unstuck. And let's be real. All of us OCDers remember the day that it felt like our brains broke. And for me, this happened back in 2016. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I was just being flooded with intrusive thoughts that my sexual orientation had changed. And the harder I tried to stop these thoughts, the worse that they got. And my heart would be pounding out of my chest. And I would feel such intense fear that it literally felt like I could faint. Now, I respect all sexual orientations and always have. But for me, I had also always identified as a straight male. So when these thoughts came pouring in, I was trying everything in my power to make them go away. I was trying to push them out. I was trying to think about something else. I was trying to replace them with a positive thought, and nothing was working. And within a few more months of these thoughts happening, I was severely anxious, deeply depressed, and suicidal. And at that point in my life, I'd lost all hope because the harder that I tried to get the thoughts to stop, the worse that they became. And I thought that I had exhausted all options. I'm like, my brain is just broken. There is nothing that I can do to ever feel good again. And so everything came to a head one night when I seriously considered giving up. And through choked up tears, I called my parents and I told them everything that was going on. That phone call, unbeknownst to me at the time, forever changed my life. They encouraged me to seek professional assistance, and in late 2016, I found a specialized therapist who diagnosed me with OCD, and we started talk therapy specific to OCD, and I began my recovery journey. Now, this was just the start, and I had to learn a lot along the way, and this is what makes my formula for recovery unique. Because number one, when I was working with a therapist, I worked with a world-renowned OCD therapist from the start of my journey. I'll be honest, I didn't even know this at the start, but it wasn't until years later that I realized, oh wow, she is considered a leader in the field of OCD and is looked up to by all these other psychologists in the field of OCD. And I learned from her. And in fact, my second therapist was also a world-renowned therapist. He presents all over the world too. And both of them taught me the fundamental skills of recovery, which I was able to implement in my life and get results. But after working with both of them, I was super hungry to find other modalities and tools to take my recovery to the next level. I felt okay, but I didn't feel great. And so I started that research journey. And since 2016, I've spent countless hours researching and learning the inner workings of ERP, of ACT or acceptance and commitment therapy, mindfulness and meditation, supplements, diet, lifestyle design, and most importantly, and what we're going to talk about in this webinar today, core fear scripting work. Didn't know anything about it. Nobody was talking about it. So I tested all of these things on my brain to find what works. I would then implement those things, refine the process, get the best result, and then bring it back to you. And as a part of that formula, I want to share that with you today. the parts that have worked the best. Core fear, imaginal scripting being one of them. Number 3, I live with OCD just like you. I'm not someone who's read about this in a textbook, but instead I am someone who actually knows what it's like to struggle, but then to also feel good again. I have literally decided that I'm going to dedicate my life to constantly learning and then teaching others with OCD my formula for success. This started back in 2016 and has snowballed into this. And I say this to all my members all the time, but everything I teach, I live. Because I have no other choice. Just like you, I live with OCD and I want to feel good all the time too. So since 2016, I want to let you into my life a little bit. I'm really proud to say that I am living my dream life while also living with OCD. And I never thought that this was possible. When I was struggling with intrusive thoughts and I thought my brain was broken, I never thought I would be the same again. So over here on the left, you'll see I married the woman of my dreams. She is my absolute soulmate. I love her with every fiber of my body, and she is one of my biggest whys for being motivated in my recovery. And back then, I never thought that I would be able to love somebody so deeply. Here in the middle, you can see I've built multiple 6-figure businesses. I've written a book that now is selling in 12+ countries. I host a podcast that's streaming all over the world, and I have a career I'm truly passionate about. I never thought any of that would ever happen. Over here on the right, I've traveled the world and I've been to places like Croatia, Greece, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and just recently I've climbed the tallest standalone mountain in the world, Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Africa, with my dad and one of my best friends, and I'm super proud of that. And I live in my dream state right by the beach. These were all things that I dreamed about in my head but didn't think would be possible if I lived with OCD. And here I am living with OCD, living my dream life. I know that this is possible for you too. That's why I created this webinar. And it wasn't easy, I'll be honest with you. It took years of therapy. It took years of personal research and testing and struggles and pain and frustration to test these things on my own brain to find a formula that really works. And so I want to save you the pain, the time, the energy, the money, and teach you everything I know. So in the next 30 to 40 minutes or so, I'm going to give you the framework that helped me recover and hopefully expedite your process so that you decrease intrusive thoughts, reduce your anxiety, and start to enjoy your life again. So let's jump into this. In part 1, we are going to discuss how OCD works in a predictable cycle. But before we do, I'm going to quickly explain from my perspective what OCD is and what it means to have obsessions and compulsions so that we're on the same page. I just want to get on the same page with you. So from my perspective, OCD is categorized by experiences of having unwanted or intrusive thoughts over here, feelings, images, urges, or sensations in our brains and bodies. Our compulsions over here are the things that we do both physically and mentally to try to get rid of these sensations and bring ourselves relief. And of course, there are all sorts of different subtypes or obsessions that us OCDers can struggle with. This list over here is not exhaustive, but to name a few, we have sexual orientation, harm, contamination, relationship, scrupulosity, checking, pedophilia, real event, existential. Some of these might feel familiar to you, but it's worth mentioning here that all of us OCDers think our subtype is the worst. I hear it all the time, and I thought it myself. If only I had insert different subtype, then I'd be good. Now, while I can understand this thought process, because let's be honest, I had it myself, underneath this is a predictable pattern that OCD runs over and over and over again, regardless of the subtype. And once we learn that cycle, we can begin to break free from it. On the other side, we have compulsions. Typical compulsions include avoidance, checking, reassurance seeking, and rumination. Some of these might stand out to you, but what they all have in common is that there's a problem solving. You can see this up here, a problem solving element to all compulsions that we do. OCD tells us that there is a problem and that we just need to find an answer. And once we find that answer, we will be good to go and we will know for sure. I fell for this lie so many times. OCD tells us this to keep us stuck in our obsessions and compulsions. I'll give you an example. When I had an intrusive thought back in the day that my orientation was suddenly going to change, I mentally compulsed by ruminating over interactions with females I'd had in the past. Did I like those interactions, or was I just faking it all along? Or I would pick up the phone and I would call my mom and I would seek reassurance. I would ask her if she thought I was straight and if I'd always been straight And of course, she would give me reassurance. Yes, Zach, you've been straight your whole life. I promise you. I would get temporary relief, but without fail, the intrusive thoughts would start to creep back in. And slowly with time, I would be stuck back in the cycle. Stuck back in the cycle. So what is the barometer for success in OCD recovery? I hear this all the time. Now we're about to jump into the OCD cycle, but before we do, I want you to answer this question for me. What is the biggest mistake us OCDers make at the start of our recovery journeys? The biggest mistake I see from others, and the same one that I made, is that we judge our success based on how many intrusive thoughts we're having. And while this totally makes sense to me, hold on, I get it. It actually works against us. Let me explain. Here's why I say this. One of the key aspects of OCD recovery is changing the meaning that we assign to intrusive thoughts. You might currently be labeling the thoughts, right? They come in and you might label them as bad or negative, which teaches the OCD part of our brain to keep sending those signals. Over time, though, if you follow the method that I teach, you'll begin to train your brain to see these thoughts and sensations as insignificant and meaningless. So our goal should not be to never have another intrusive thought ever again. That's impossible. But instead to teach our brains not to care whether we do, which you see on this slide. There are a couple of reasons for this. Number one, we want to focus on what we can control. If we could control our thoughts, you and I wouldn't be on this webinar talking right now. You would just get rid of the thoughts. So we can't control them, but we can control how we respond to them, which means we can also change the meaning that we assign to the various sensations we have. Number two is that when we say to ourselves, the only way I can be happy, Zach, is if I never have another intrusive thought again, we subconsciously signal to the OCD part of our brain that some thoughts are okay and some thoughts are not. On the next slide, we're going to jump into this, but if we're constantly labeling some thoughts as good and some thoughts as bad, we will always stay stuck. This is so important, y'all. Us OCDers have to have the right goal going into recovery to get the results that we want. More on this in the next few minutes, but the goal that we should have is to never care whether we never have another intrusive thought again, which you can see on this slide right here. So here's the OCD cycle. We've covered the biggest mistakes us OCDers make at the start of our journey. And now it's time for us to talk about the OCD cycle. We have to dive into it. The OCD cycle is the most important information that we can understand. It's foundational to our recovery journey because once we understand how the OCD cycle works, we can learn when we're falling into the cycle, and then, and most importantly, we can know exactly how to get out of it, which gives us confidence. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, the countless hours of research and the thousands of people that I've spoken to who live with OCD, that OCD works in a predictable, cyclical nature. I promise you that. And this is how it works. It works in a 6-step process. First, we have a trigger. You can see that right up here, right? Thoughts, images, urges, and sensations come into our consciousness. Second step, we attach meaning to those sensations. And typically, we label these thoughts and sensations as negative or undesirable. I hear people say this all the time. They say things like, no, I don't want these thoughts, or I hate these thoughts, or these thoughts are awful. I just want them to stop. I just want them to go away. This signals to the OCD part of our brain that these thoughts are bad and dangerous, and we need to do something about them, right? So number 3, our brain, in an attempt to protect us, sends us various emotions to get our attention and get us to take action. Emotions like anxiety, depression, or distress typically follows intrusive thoughts after we've assigned meaning. Step 4, in an attempt, we try to remove these feelings to make ourselves feel better. So what do? We do our physical or our mental compulsions in an attempt to bring ourselves temporary relief. Now, for most of us at the start of our OCD journeys, we do a compulsion and it brings us some form of relief. So what happens? Step number 6, confirmation of threat. After completing our compulsions and getting relief, we teach the OCD part of our brain that we needed to do that compulsion to stay safe. The OCD part of the brain latches onto this and the cycle starts over again. So we teach the brain that had we not done that compulsion, we would have been in danger. So let's use me as an example, but please make sure to apply yourself to the OCD cycle. And I know I'm going fast, but I'm trying to fit all this information in 30 minutes. Number 1, I'd be walking down the street and a guy with a tight-fitting shirt would be walking towards me. Boom, my trigger. an intrusive thought would pop up in my head. That guy is attractive. I wonder if I could be with him. Oh no, right? I would attach meaning to these thoughts. No, gross, no, stop, just go away, thought. Why would I have this thought if it's not true? So of course I'm attaching negative meaning to it. And because I was assigning negative meaning to these thoughts, and I thought they actually meant something, I would start to experience anxiety. Back then, I believed that my thoughts defined me and that everything that I thought had a meaning. So 4, I would have an intense urge to get rid of the anxiety and fear that was pouring over my body. Number 5, in that moment, I would physically compulse by avoiding looking at that guy walking towards me, and if possible, I would try to move to the other side of the street as quickly as possible. Later on, I would ruminate about that situation, trying to problem solve why I had these thoughts and what they meant. Because I could never get a definitive answer, I would eventually call my mom to seek reassurance. I would ask her if she thought I could secretly have been gay my whole life, and she would always answer with compassion and say no, which brought me relief in that moment, and I foolishly thought I could move on with my life. Unknowingly, though, I was engaging in compulsions and problem solving. And that's step number 6. By completing physical and mental compulsions, I taught the OCD part of my brain that it needed to keep me safe from sexually intrusive thoughts, that somehow just having these thoughts was dangerous. As a result, the OCD began sending me more and more intrusive thoughts, which I would attach negative meaning to and then compulse in an attempt to get rid of them, right? This vicious cycle, y'all, running my mouse over and over again, repeated to the point where I was no longer getting any relief. That might be you. I experienced intrusive thoughts 24/7 and was stuck in a non-stop loop. Thoughts, compulsions, problem solving. I believe the biggest lie that OCD was telling me, which was that if I just searched hard enough, I could get a definitive answer and then I'd be free. So let me take a pause. I've been talking. Can you see how you've been engaging in the OCD cycle? Maybe you couldn't put words to it, but now you can see it. So what do? Well, we have to become aware of how we've been stuck in the cycle. And then the next step is to learn how to break free. You'll notice that there are 2 arrows, right? Pointed at meaning and one at compulsion. The first thing us OCDers have to learn to break free from the OCD shackles is that we can teach our brains to change the meaning we assign to thoughts, feelings, images, urges, and sensation. And that the meaning we want to start assigning to these thoughts is ironically that they're meaningless. They have no meaning, that they don't define who we are, and that they're just random bits of words, feelings, bumbling up, that don't have any real significance. Boom, right? We're going to talk about these 4 core mindsets on the next slide that help us teach our brains to change our relationship with intrusive thoughts. But as you can see by the cycle, when we start to change our relationship with intrusive thoughts and sensations from something that is negative and undesirable, that has and bad, to something that has no meaning or significance whatsoever, we actually teach our brains that these sensations aren't a threat. And when our brains don't interpret something as a threat, we don't feel anxious or distressed because our fight, flight, or freeze system isn't activated. So we quite literally cut off the cycle. You can see me drawing poorly here. At step number 2, we don't fall any deeper into the cycle. And remember how I said our goal shouldn't be to never have another intrusive thought again, because we can't control that. But instead, our goal should be to teach our brain not to care, because we can teach our brain not to care. And I'm living proof of that. And we stop from falling deeper into the cycle, which you can see here. The second arrow is pointing at compulsions. The benefit of changing the meaning we assign to thoughts is that it makes compulsion resistance that much easier over time. For example, when I first started struggling with intrusive thoughts, it was like a fire alarm was going off in my head. I battled with my thoughts because I thought they were the worst things possible. This, of course, was not helpful, and it made it nearly impossible to resist compulsions. But when I started teaching my brain to look at sexually intrusive thoughts differently, a thought would come in. I would have the urge to call my mom to seek reassurance, but it didn't feel as intense because I was deploying one of the 4 core mindsets, which I'm going to teach you, that meant that over time, my anxiety levels became less and less. It was no longer life or death, but instead, random thoughts that actually had no meaning. which made it easier to resist compulsions. So in our OCD recovery journeys, learning to change the meaning we assign to thoughts and sensations right here, this part right here, is everything, because it helps us to not slip back into the cycle, y'all. If we can stop it here and don't have to fight so hard over here, it makes it that much easier. So, what are the key ingredients? Take the pen off here. As us OCDers embark on changing our relationship with intrusive thoughts and sensations, we want to embrace 4 core mindsets that will help us do that. These mindsets are acceptance, uncertainty, indifference, and agreement. I think it's important to mention that one mindset or multiple mindsets might be effective for you over others. That's okay. We are experimenting to find which ones work best for us and then use it over and over again in our recovery. So some mindsets might resonate for you more than others. So let's talk about acceptance. All right, I'm going to level with you. Undoubtedly, you've probably heard people talk about just accepting your thoughts. And as a fellow OCDer, I know how frustrating that can feel because simply put, you're having thoughts that you just don't want to accept. This is the exact same thing for me. So here's my perspective on acceptance. The first thing to understand is that when we're accepting thoughts, we're not actually accepting them as truth. We don't have to believe that our thoughts are real or that they'd actually happen or that they truly define us. Instead, when I talk about acceptance and how I teach it, is that I mean that we're accepting a set of ideas. And here are these ideas. Number 1, the first idea that we have to accept is that what we're experiencing is actually OCD. You and I have to get on the same page that we actually have OCD. The second idea that we have to believe is that OCD is a real diagnosable brain health challenge that impacts millions of people across the globe. If we can accept those 2 things, the third idea that we have to accept is that because OCD is a diagnosable brain health challenge, it also has a set of predictable symptoms that impact every single person who has OCD. Which leads me to my fourth idea that we have to accept is that one of those symptoms of OCD is unwanted intrusive thoughts, feelings, images, urges, and sensations. And that every person with OCD has these unwanted experiences. All of us do, even though we think it's unique to us. Which leads me to my last point of acceptance. If we can accept that we have OCD, if we can accept that it's a diagnosable medical condition that impacts millions of people across the globe, and if we can accept that there is a predictable set of symptoms like intrusive thoughts and sensations that work in a cyclical nature, then maybe, just maybe, you and I can accept that these thoughts and feelings that we're having are just junk content that don't actually have any real significance or meaning. It might feel real, but it's just a symptom that we're experiencing, right? So thinking back to the cycle, when an intrusive thought comes in, if you want to practice acceptance, you might say to yourself, it's totally fine that I'm having these thoughts. These thoughts are just a symptom of OCD, and they're welcome to stay for as long as they want. You might use statements like, this thought is fine, or this feeling is okay. What I call creating okayness. So that's one mindset we can deploy. The next is uncertainty. OCD craves an answer, and it's our job to teach the fear center of our brain that we don't need a 100% definitive answer. So when an intrusive thought comes in, we can respond by utilizing uncertain statements. One of the most popular is maybe, maybe not statements. Maybe you've heard these, maybe you haven't, but here you go. So for example, when an intrusive thought would come in that I might be sexually attracted to a male, I would see the thought come in, I would stare right at it, and without pushing it away, I would look at it and I would say, maybe I would be attracted to a man. Maybe I wouldn't be. I can't be 100% certain, and that's okay. And over time, through repetition of saying these statements, I taught the OCD part of my brain that I didn't need to have an answer. Next, we have indifference. What I find fascinating about OCD is that we can literally teach our brains to not care just by acting like we don't care about the thoughts or sensations that we're experiencing. So I want you to imagine that cool kid from your middle school or high school days, the person who acted like they didn't care about anything. They're just like, yeah, whatever, that's fine, I don't really care. The funny thing is, we can do that exact same thing with thoughts and sensations. Let's say that I'm having an intrusive thought. It comes in and boom, it scares me. And my heart starts to pound. right? Well, we can respond to these intrusive thoughts by acting indifferent. Maybe we act like we don't care. So we shrug our shoulders or we kick our feet up and we act relaxed, even if we don't feel that way. Maybe we still feel scared. This starts to teach the OCD part of our brain that we really don't need to care about these thoughts and sensations. So it stops sending us these fear signals. And lastly, we have agreement. Now, if you would have told me to agree with my thoughts at the start, I would have been absolutely shocked, number one, and I've said, there's no way I'm going to agree with some of these thoughts because it's not who I am. Again, I'm completely fine with people's orientations, but this just isn't how I've ever identified. So when I say agreement, there's a little secret that I learned that's important in how you agree to change the meaning to the thoughts and sensations. When you agree with these thoughts, when they come in, rather than agreeing as if you truly believe the thoughts, speak to the OCD in a sarcastic tone. Quite literally, speak down to the OCD. Act like you're better than the OCD, because we are. As an example, let's say OCD bubbled up a thought that told me I better avoid the gym, otherwise I'm going to see an attractive man there and fall in love. I would see these thoughts come in, bring them to the center of my attention, and respond by saying, yeah, you're absolutely right, OCD. You're 100% correct. Such a good point, OCD. Thank you so much for reminding me that at any given moment, my sexual orientation is going to change. You are so right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And by the way, had you not sent me this message, OCD, that was so urgent, it really might have happened. So please make sure you keep them coming. That sarcasm repeated over time teaches the OCD part of our brain not to care. As mentioned earlier, all four of these mindsets can be used in recovery to change your relationship with thoughts. One might be more beneficial for you than another, and that's okay. The most important thing is to try them out to see what works best for you. And now it's time to talk about the 3-step formula. So we've changed our goal for recovery. We've learned how the OCD cycle works, and we've learned how to respond to intrusive thoughts to change our meaning. The meaning being the most important part in that cycle. So the next step is to attack our OCD head on by addressing surface level thoughts, discovering our core fear, and architecting what I call a brain health centric lifestyle. We can bring all of this together by utilizing my simple 3-step formula. So the first step is teaching our brains how to respond to surface level thoughts. Surface level thoughts are the random words, images, and sensations that bubble up out of nowhere. They scare us a little bit, but they don't go any deeper than that. For example, at the start of my journey, I might have the thought, you're gay, and it would just bubble up out of nowhere. Knowing the key ingredients to overcoming OCD, I would respond by saying, oh yeah, OCD, you're totally right, I'm gay. I would do this in a sarcastic tone. Another surface level example would be me maybe writing down the word gay on a Post-it note and putting it up all over my condo and deliberately staring at it to trigger intrusive thoughts and then use my 4 core mindsets to respond differently. I call these micro exposures, and they are a key part of recovery, right? On surface level. However, surface level thoughts can be a lot like whack-a-mole. You've probably seen this because we get used to one set of intrusive thoughts and another one pops up and we're back at square one. I spent the first 2 years of my recovery journey whacking at different thoughts because I thought that this was the most effective form of exposure and response prevention, or ERP. This was, of course, until I discovered the importance of identifying your core fear and exposing yourself to that. That's in the middle right here. So what is our core fear? What is it? Our core fear is the thing that scares us the most, and it's our most feared outcome. So it's what we're afraid deep down inside would happen if one of our surface level thoughts were to actually come true. And OCD knows what our core fear is, and it preys on us by using it against us. So truthfully, OCD doesn't actually want you to discover it. It wants you to stay at the surface level intrusive thoughts because it wants you to continue to play the game of whack-a-mole for the rest of your life, while the core fear runs in the background and dictates all of our decision-making and responses. So here's the deal, y'all. Once we identify our core fear, we can begin to systematically chip away at it by doing imaginal scripting and using the key ingredient responses to begin to make peace with it. And as we begin to make peace with our core fear, from my experience, the surface level intrusive thoughts begin to decrease and we start to feel more at peace and calm, which I'm guessing is what you're trying to achieve. It's what I was trying to achieve. So what are the 5 core fears? Well, I want you to listen closely to this because I'm going to follow up with a question here. The 5 core fears are loss of love or rejection, loss of identity, loss of meaning, loss of purpose, and death. So again, I'll repeat those. Loss of love or rejection, loss of identity, loss of meaning, loss of purpose, or death. Just from hearing these 5 fears, which one do you think resonates the most with you? Give you a second to think about that. Now they say that all of us OCDers have all 5 inside of us. And I've certainly been able to discover that within myself. It's just that one is more predominant than the others. Now I have a process for discovering what our core fear is, and I teach all of this in my Conquer Your OCD course. But for the sake of keeping this workshop within the 30 minutes, because I tend to ramble, I wanted to at least give you the 5 core fears so that you have an idea of what it might be for you. Because once we discover our core fear, the next step is to begin doing exposure work using my simple process. So I want to give you that process right now. So the first thing that we do once we've discovered our core fears, we do imaginal scripting where we journal our most feared outcome actually coming true. In this scripting exercise, you should deliberately trigger yourself and then write out a scenario in first person, present tense that ends tragically or uncertain. There should be no happy endings and no resolutions. When we do these scripts, we can do them in easy, medium, or hard levels, which is dictated by how much detail we include in the script. After we've written out the script, the next step is to read it over. Once we've read that script, the next step is to then record that on our phone and then listen to that worst case scenario over and over and over again, using the key ingredients of acceptance, uncertainty, indifference, and agreement to change the meaning. The key here is to do these scripting exposures while working to change the meaning and resist compulsions. And as a rule of thumb, when we're doing these exposures, we want to wait until the anxiety cuts in half. So if you spiked your anxiety to an 8, we want to wait until it cuts down to a 4. However, how I teach core fear exposure work is to listen to or read these scripts until we are so bored we can't stand to listen to them for one more second. Not because we're scared. No, we're not scared anymore now, but because we are bored out of our minds. If we get to that point of boredom, it teaches the OCD part of our brain not to care. And remember, that's our goal. Thinking back to the cycle is just to change our meaning with the thoughts and sensations that come in. Because if we could control the thoughts, you and I wouldn't be here right now, right? So when we do core fear exposure work, we go multiple layers past surface level intrusive thoughts, which allows us to confront what we're truly scared of and then make peace with it. When we do this, we're able to create lasting long-term recovery. No more of this whack-a-mole stuff. And lastly, lifestyle. When we design a lifestyle that's conducive for long-term recovery, we build it on 5 pillars: sleep hygiene, mindfulness and meditation, movement, substances, and relationships. I talk about this way more in depth in my Conquer Your OCD course. Again, trying to keep this within 30 minutes. But once we put these 5 pillars in place, combined with the skills that we've developed to identify and attack our core fear, we can then go confidently into the world knowing we have the tools we need to address intrusive thoughts and live a values-based life. It's that simple. It's complicated, but it's that simple, y'all. So we've covered my formula for breaking free from OCD. Now, since you've watched the entire webinar all the way up until this point, I want to keep my promise to you, and I want to share with you the gift that I want to give you, which you won't find anywhere else but on this webinar. Not on my website, not on my podcast, not on Instagram. But before I do, I want to take a couple of minutes and answer the most frequently asked questions that I get all the time about my full Conquer Your OCD crash course, and then I'll share my gift with you. So maybe at this point you're wondering, is the full crash course going to be beneficial for me? And I want to answer those questions for you. So in the next couple of minutes, we're going to talk about why you would do this course over therapy, what you'll actually get in the course, how you'll know if it will work for you, who the program is best suited for, and what the investment is. What is the investment in time? What is the investment in your hard-earned dollars? So let's start with therapy. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Why would I take your course over therapy? Well, first I want to start by saying I'm not suggesting that you don't do therapy. If you want to pursue therapy, you absolutely should, and I completely encourage that. So don't twist my words. You should pursue therapy if you want. But as you go on this journey of pursuing a therapist, there are some things that I want you to consider that I wish I would have considered at the start of my journey and why I created this course. Number one, the majority of therapists are generalists, which means they don't actually know how to treat OCD. If you ask them, they might say that they understand OCD and that they know how to treat it, only for you to spend countless hours and thousands of dollars working with a therapist, a generalist, to get no results. Imagine that. No results after time spent. This exact thing happened to me, and it prolonged my journey to recovery by over a year. This isn't good, and that's why I wanted to start with this point to at least warn you about this. Number two, wait lists. The specialists that do specialize in OCD, if you find one, that's great, but the challenge that you might run into is wait lists. The majority of OCD therapists, they have an average of 3 to 4 months on their wait list, which means that you have to continue suffering and struggling until they can get you in. Again, this actually happened to me, and it prolonged my recovery by months on top of the year that I lost working with the wrong type of therapist. Number three, frequency. Let's say that you actually do get in with the therapist right away. Again, that's awesome. That's great. The next challenge that you'll probably run into is how frequently you'll be able to see them. Most therapists who treat OCD are swamped because they're specialists. And this means that they can only see their clients once every few weeks, maybe every month or so, which means that you have an hour every few weeks, every month or so to work with someone, which isn't going to help you build momentum. And momentum in OCD recovery is one of the most important things. Again, this happened to me, which stressed my recovery process even longer, and that's why I'm telling you about this. Number four, no results guaranteed. There are no guarantees. Simply put, you get no guarantees with therapists. If you don't mesh well or their services don't work, well, guess what? You've spent that money and you're not getting it back. I'm going to talk a little bit about my guarantee here in a second, but I just wanted to highlight that for you. Number five, most therapists make you pay out of pocket. This is just the reality because they don't accept insurance because insurance companies are a pain in the butt. So you'll notice that you'll have to pay out of pocket for the majority of the therapists out there that you'll work with. For the therapists who do take insurance, they will most times make you pay up front out of pocket and then make you haggle with the insurance company to collect payment for your therapy sessions after they've already occurred. Another thing that happened to me, that's why I want to highlight it to you, and it absolutely sucked. I was already anxious and depressed, being flooded with intrusive thoughts, and now I'm on the phone with insurance companies trying to haggle with them to get my money back. And that part alone was exhausting. I mean, it was exhausting already fighting OCD and then having to haggle with the insurance companies. And then the last point, sessions, right, with therapists, they can feel a little cold and detached. And you'll notice in sessions with therapists that maybe they won't be very warm or necessarily be able to relate to you. Now, I'm not blaming them. This is actually not their fault. I found this out over the years just through getting into this space. But this is how they're trained. This is the system that they come up in and how they're trained to work with clients. And it can feel super impersonal and detached. And for me personally, when I left most of my sessions, I left feeling pretty much like I was broken and something was wrong with me. It's not their fault, but they're not able to relate the way that I can with you. And so my goal with everything that I offer is to make you feel heard, seen, and most important, normal. We are not broken. We're not broken. So I want to get this clear. I respect therapists because some of them do truly fantastic work. And if you find one, you should stick with them. But unfortunately, that's not the case in a good portion of the time. So again, I'm not suggesting that you don't work with a therapist. You should absolutely pursue that option. If that's something you're interested in, you could also take the course and be with a therapist at the same time. I just want to present all the hurdles so you're aware as you go on your recovery journey. All right, so what's the next question I tend to get? The next question I tend to get is, all right, Zach, this sounds great. I want full access to the course, but what's actually in it? So if you pay for the full course to the Conquer Your OCD Crash Course, Crush Your Intrusive Thoughts, and Reduce Your Anxiety in 90 Days Step-by-Step e-course, this is what you're going to learn. Number one, you're going to learn the most critical mentalities that you absolutely have to have for long-term success. And when people lack these mentalities, I was one of them. Some of my clients are like this. They tend to stay stunted in their growth, which is no good. So we have to develop these mentalities. You're going to get an in-depth look at how the OCD cycle works. We talked about this in the webinar. We go a little more in depth in the e-course, but again, we have to know how OCD works so that we can break out of the cycle. You're going to learn the 4 core mindsets that you have to use over and over and over again to step out of the OCD cycle for good. Once we learn these, we can set ourselves free. You're going to learn the sneaky tricks that OCD tries to play on us to keep us in the cycle and stop our progress. Once we know the tricks, we can recognize them, deflect them, and get free. Next, you're going to get the secret formula for how to respond to intrusive thoughts so that they don't bother you anymore. This is super critical. All the clients that go through the full e-course say that they find this to be one of the most beneficial parts of the course and the training, and the part that was missing in their recovery. So you're going to learn that. And lastly, my 3-step formula to address surface level intrusive thoughts, identify your core fear. You can see this right here, and then do imaginal scripting that actually works and gets you the results that you want. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the secret recipe. This is the formula that when you apply it over and over and over again, and you blitz this for the next 90 days, you are going to drastically improve your symptoms. I'm not talking from a textbook. I'm talking from experience because I lived it. I went through it, and here I am now, low intrusive thoughts, low to no anxiety. Now, all of this just by itself is enough to get you significant results, just the course. But I don't want this to be just another course that you purchase and then maybe you get results, maybe you don't. Maybe you actually go through the course, maybe you don't. I want you to get great results, and I want you to get your life back. So there's more that I want to give you. In addition to the Conquer Your OCD crash course, you're also going to get direct access to me. You're going to get direct support from me. This isn't just a course that you buy and then go through yourself, because I know what it feels like to feel alone in the OCD journey, and I want you to have support every step of the way so that I can clear up when things are confusing or uncertain. So when you sign up for the full Conquer Your OCD crash course, you're also going to have full access to me. So what are you going to get? Well, these are the bonus offers. So let me walk you through them. Number 1, you are going to get unlimited message support from me. So it doesn't matter whether you're stuck on a scripting exercise, you're confused about something, or you just need to vent because you're struggling. I will respond to you on average within 2 hours between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Pacific time. This is $165 a month value poured out over the year because, again, you get lifetime access to it. It's $1,980. I just want to give it to you for free. The next thing is accountability buddies. When you sign up for the course and scripting, you are going to be paired with an accountability buddy because studies have found time and again, when we're working with somebody else, we don't feel alone. We feel more motivated. We're more likely to achieve our goals. So in addition to working with me and me being there for you, you're also going to have an accountability buddy. That's $169 a month value spread out over the year. Again, you have access for life. $2,028 value. I just want to throw that in there and give it to you because I want to take your recovery to the next level. Now, let's talk about all the worksheets that you're going to get. You're going to get the How to Write an Imaginal Script the Right Way worksheet. $50 value. The biggest thing that I hear from people is, Zach, how do I know if I'm writing a script the right way? How do I know if I'm doing this the right way? I want to clear that up for you. Not only could you ask me in the unlimited chat feature, not only could you ask your accountability buddy, but there's going to be a guide, $50 value, to walk you through that process. Another worksheet you're going to get, how to overcome the fear of facing your fears, or in this case, this is a motivational video. $20 value. We're scared of ourselves. Us OCDers are scared of our brains. We're scared of our thoughts. We have to overcome that hurdle to recover from OCD. I'm going to teach you that. Next, another worksheet you're going to get, how to get started on your recovery guide. This is a downloadable guide, $150 value. It's the guide that I wish I would have had at the start of my journey. Because if you're anything like me, you're confused, you don't know what your next step is, you really just want to feel good again. And you're hearing, okay, if somebody gave me something that in 90 days could change how I feel right now, would I do it? That's why I created it. Because the answer for me is yes, 100%. I don't want to feel like crap anymore. Next, must-have supplements for recovery guide. You absolutely want to have this. One of the biggest conversations being missed in OCD recovery is the supplements. So I want to make sure that you have access to what the supplements are that you need to be taking on a daily basis to really help your brain. Next, foods that help reduce anxiety. You're going to get this guide, right? We're going to talk about diet, something that isn't always talked about in recovery, but is a super, super important part to the recovery journey. So as you can see, I really approach OCD recovery holistically. How to improve your sleep while recovering. Another big important thing that I hear from people, Zach, I'm not sleeping well during recovery. Okay, no problem. I can help you with this. We're going to work through this. You're going to improve your sleep. And lastly, relaxation exercises to do during recovery. You're going to get all of this. Every last thing that I just listed off. Up top, you can see when you total all this up, it's $4,770 worth of value. I'm just giving it to you in the course. I'm just going to give it to you in the course because I don't want this to be another course that you just purchase. I actually want it to be something that when you make the investment, you're investing in yourself, and in 90 days, we get you results. But honestly, I'm not even done yet because there's a few other things that I feel would be important for your recovery. So if you sign up for the e-course, this is what else you get. You get a pre-recorded video of me doing a scripting exercise to see my exact process. $200 value. Again, I just feel that it's important that you see how I do it so that when you're doing it, you have somebody who's, again, down to a place in their life where they have limited intrusive thoughts, low to no anxiety. So you're actually learning from somebody else. And if that wasn't enough, I'm also throwing in a free copy of my book, You're Not Alone. It is a guide to overcoming anxiety and depression. It's everything that I wish I would have known at the start of my journey. So all of this totaled together, $4,770 worth of value. Plus, that's the value just for what I showed you. Plus, you get lifetime access to my Conquer Your OCD crash course for no additional investment. It's all included together. And you get it for life. You have access to everything for as long as you live, and you get access to everything that I add over the years. And here's the reality. OCD recovery is a lifelong pursuit. I was diagnosed in 2016, and it took me years to get back to the place that I'm at now. I want to expedite that process for you. And I'm always going to be adding tools. As I learn something new, you'll learn something new. So this solution is already everything I included, plus the Conquer Your OCD crash course. Everything else that exists out there on the market does not provide this much value. And I know this because, number one, I looked for it when I was struggling. And then when I went to go create all these materials a few years ago, there was nothing else like that. And I'm not satisfied with just creating another e-course that you purchase and then don't do anything with. I want you to be a different person in 90 days. I cannot emphasize that enough. So here's the deal. I want to throw in another bonus. If you sign up for the e-course today, right now, I will gift you a free one-on-one coaching call with me to kick off your journey to OCD recovery. This by itself is what my high achiever clients pay me thousands of dollars to access, and what therapists charge hundreds of dollars for. But I want to gift it to you for free to prove to you just how serious I am about your recovery. Because from my perspective, once you buy the e-course, that's just the start. So I want to onboard you, and I want us getting moved in a direction that's positive, because I know what it feels like to struggle with intrusive thoughts and feel hopeless and want to know you're not alone in this journey. So when you sign up, when you get into the course, you're going to be prompted to schedule a call with me so that we can hit the ground running and get you some serious momentum. So let's talk about the next most frequently asked question, which is guarantees, right? We all want to know that the thing that we're about to buy or potentially buy is actually going to help us. And from my perspective, time is the most valuable asset that we have. So you want to know that this is worth your time, this is worth your financial resources, and I would be asking myself the same exact thing. So here's my guarantee to you. You're not going to hear a guarantee like this anywhere else. If you purchase my Conquer Your OCD crash course, crush your intrusive thoughts and reduce your anxiety in 90 days, step-by-step method, and you don't get any results, you don't get the results that you wanted, your symptoms don't improve, here's my guarantee to you. Number one, if you show up and do the work, meaning you complete 100% of the course, you work through roadblocks with me via the unlimited chat feature over the next 90 days. You utilize the worksheets. You get paired up with your accountability buddy and work with them. And you do at least 20 minutes of imaginal scripting work a couple times a week for the next 3 months. And you don't see any improvement at all in your symptoms, nothing improves, then I will personally work with you once a week for 30 days, one-on-one, free of charge, until we get you the results that you're hoping to achieve. That's how serious I am about your recovery. I actually want you to be a different person after coming into contact with me and working with me. The only condition with the one-on-one coaching that I ask, though, is that you show up for all of our calls and you meet with me consecutive weeks in a row. And if you can't, that's okay. But this should be communicated with at least 72 hours of notice that we can reschedule our coaching sessions. I expect this out of my other coaching clients, so it's just only fair that I apply that here in this offer today. And if after all that, right, after all that, the e-course, 90 days of access to the course, accountability, direct chat support, 30 days of working with me one-on-one, and you're not able to reduce your symptoms, I will just completely refund your full investment for this program. And then on top of that, I will personally pay for your next therapy session. You can see it right here. All you have to do is show me the receipt that you went, and I'll wire you the money to cover the cost. This is how much I care about your recovery, period. I will refund you the whole money, the whole thing that you invested, and I'll pay for another therapy session for you. So best case scenario, you go through this course with support from my team and I over the next 90 days, and as a result, you significantly reduce your intrusive thoughts, lower your anxiety, and start to get your life back. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario, you sign up, you get 90 days of access to the Conquer Your OCD crash course, plus support, plus all of the worksheets, everything included, over $4,000 of value, plus one-on-one coaching from me for free for a month. And then after all that, if nothing works, you get to tell me I suck, we give you your money back, and I pay you for your next therapy session. That's wild. Think about it. If you worked with a therapist for 4 months and they didn't help you at all, do you think they would refund you your money and pay for you to work with another therapist? I don't think they would. But I want to, because I want to prove to you just how committed I am to your recovery, and I want to prove to you how much I believe in this program. If I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't do a guarantee, but I do. So for you, both of these options are risk-free. The only guarantee not to help you in your recovery is not getting started today. Now, I'll be clear. I'm not guaranteeing that your symptoms are just going to improve just because you signed up for this program. I mean, after all, I can't do the imaginal scripting work for you. Only you can actually be consistent every single day and face your fears every single day. But what I am guaranteeing you is that you will get thousands of dollars worth of value and service and support from us to support you on this recovery journey. This isn't an e-course that you just buy, that you never hear from the person who actually created it. I am going to be walking with you step by step. So here's the plan. I'm keeping the Conquer Your OCD crash course open until we reach 20 new clients, at which point we're going to close admissions for at least the next month because we want to help those clients get onboarded. We want to stay focused on them and we want to kickstart their journey. That's how committed I am. I'm limiting it because I want to make sure that the students who join, I can really help. So that means that if you don't join today, you'll more than likely be added to our wait list and informed on when we open things up. So the question becomes this. How much longer do you want to suffer unnecessarily for? And how much more time do you want to waste not living the life that you deserve? Because here's the truth. If you follow this program, you will get results. I know that because everything that I teach is what I applied to myself, and I have minimal intrusive thoughts and no anxiety. And the best part about all this, I had to figure it out over years and countless hours of research. In this training, it's all laid out for you, and it takes the guesswork out of the entire process. So imagine no longer having to wonder if you're doing things right or not. Imagine not feeling alone during the recovery process. Imagine how you'll feel in 90 days if you just commit to the process right now and do the work that I lay out for you in a simple, easy, step-by-step format. Imagine how good you'll feel when you have less intrusive thoughts and lower anxiety. What would that be like? If you would have asked me that in 2016, 2017, I would have said this is a no-brainer. So who is the course best for? I get this question a lot. So from my perspective, OCD comes in many different shapes and forms, and underneath whatever thoughts you're struggling with is just OCD. But if we want to get into subtypes or the specific thoughts that you're struggling with, If you're struggling with sexual orientation OCD, pedophilia OCD, relationship OCD, existential OCD, contamination, harm, suicidal, real event, or false memory OCD, we believe that this Conquer Your OCD crash course will be best suited for you. So this will be the best fit for you. And now the big question I always get, all right, Zach, all this sounds good. What is the investment? I want to sign up. I want to do something about my life, about this OCD. I want to get my life back. So what is the investment for my Conquer Your OCD crash course? Well, I want you to think about this. I'm going to draw your attention to point number one. The average therapy session is $250, and the average amount of sessions is between 12 to 16 sessions. So if you do the math there, that's roughly $3,000 to $4,000 to maybe get results, maybe start to see results from working with a therapist. And again, I'm not saying that you don't. I'm just painting the picture for you. If you want to work with a therapist, you should, but I'm just painting the picture. And here's the reality. Therapists legally can't guarantee you results, and they won't guarantee you results because it's an exchange of time for money. So they're not going to sink time into you, and if you don't get results, give you money back. And this is exactly why I created this course and why I created a guarantee that you're not going to find anywhere else. Because from my perspective, I know what it feels like to be flooded with so many intrusive thoughts and anxiety that you can't even think straight. So if I can't help you, I want to give you your money back and then pay for you to work with somebody who can maybe potentially help you out. And so the goal for me and us working together is to actually lay out a blueprint that gives you everything that you need to know as quickly as possible, the information that I wish that I would have had to expedite your process so that you start to feel good and you're a different person in 90 days. So I want you to think about $3,000 to $4,000 investment to maybe start seeing results with a therapist. So I'll draw your attention to point number two. When you purchase my Conquer Your OCD crash course, you're not just getting the course. Now, the course in and of itself is great. It lays out the step-by-step blueprint, everything that you need to know to be a different person in 90 days. But I don't want this to just be a great experience for you. I want it to be a phenomenal experience for you. I really want you to feel transformed in 90 days from now. So in addition to the actual course itself, you're going to get unlimited chat support from me. You're not going to go through the course alone. You're actually going to have somebody there guiding you every single step of the way. But that's not all you get, right? You're going to get paired with an accountability buddy so that, again, you're building relationships with other people who have OCD. You're sharing ideas. You're supporting each other so that we can go on this journey together. You're also getting access to all of the worksheets and information and questions that I've been asked over the years and went and found out what the answer to those questions are. So it goes way past like, what are the best methods in therapy? We're going to talk about supplements, diet, gut health, lifestyle design, how to get better sleep, how to navigate OCD recovery while living in the real world, things that you're not going to talk about in therapy more than likely. I teach all of this in the course. And if that's not enough, you also get a copy of my book. Now that's a $4,770 value because if you do the math, remember the unlimited chat support, that was totaled over the course of a year about $1,000. Same with the accountability. All the worksheets totaled up to about $500, and then a copy of my book. $4,770 worth of value. That's just being added to the Conquer Your OCD crash course. A great course that in and of itself, just by itself, would be helpful. And I know that because members have gone through it and gotten results, but I want to provide more. I don't want this to just be a great experience. I want it to be phenomenal. I want you to get results and be a different person in 90 days. But if that's not enough, remember the bonus on top of the bonus. If you sign up for my Conquer Your OCD crash course before the end of this webinar, you also get a one-on-one coaching call with me to kick off your journey. This is something that my coaching clients pay at least $1,000 for because each one of my coaching sessions is $250. And I don't work with a client for less than 4 sessions at a time. And the reason for that is because I believe that we can't get any results in under a month's time. That's about the amount of time that it takes to start to see some results. My clients work with me from 4 sessions all the way up to 12. So 3 months, 90 days, exactly what I want to walk you through. I mean, I don't do one-off coaching sessions. So this is something that I'm gifting you to say, look, I'm committed. Let's sit down. Let's talk. Let's identify the areas that you need to work on. And then let's get you started on your 90-day path so that in 90 days, you're starting to feel some relief. You're starting to feel like yourself again. You're starting to get your life back. So you get all of that. And then you get full access to my Conquer Your OCD crash course, which in and of itself is the most important thing. It is the best thing. And I know that because everything that I teach in that course is what I live myself, and it's how I've reclaimed my life. Now, on my website, you're going to see that's $597 for lifetime access. You get access to everything we laid out: unlimited chat support, accountability buddy, all the worksheets, digital copy of my book. You don't get one-on-one access to me on my website. This is a bonus offer only for the webinar, but nonetheless, the course in and of itself is phenomenal. I mean, that's the part that when you go through the course, you're going to get results. I know that because members that have gone through the course, they get results. They start to see changes in their lives and they get positive momentum going. But I didn't want this to just be a great offer. I wanted it to be phenomenal. So you get lifetime access for $597 to my Conquer Your OCD crash course, which is everything in that course that I teach is everything that I utilized in my life to get my life back, but it took me years, right? So I want to give you that information in a step-by-step process so that in 90 days from now, you're a different person. I want you to picture yourself right now, and I want you to picture yourself in 90 days if you committed and did the work. This course is going to teach you how to do that. Plus, you get unlimited chat support, accountability buddy, all the worksheets, copy of my book, lifetime access. So guess what? Everything that I add to the course moving forward, you have access to as well. But this is where I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your focus. I want to thank you for your energy today. If you've made it this far in the webinar, I'm gifting you an additional $100 off my course. So you see this, I'll draw your attention to point number 5. Everything that we just talked about is over $6,000 worth of value, the course, all the support, the coaching offer, all that. But I want to offer you another $100 off the course, something that I'm not offering anywhere else, not on my Instagram, not on my podcast, not on my website, because I truly want to see you get results. And I can tell that if you made it this far, you're one of those people that's dedicated. So with that extra $100 off, it takes the total investment from $597 down to $497. This gives you lifetime access to the course, unlimited support, accountability pairing, all worksheets, a free copy of my book, and a free one-on-one coaching session to get you started. Plus, my guarantee that if you don't get any results, you work with me for a month straight. If you still don't get any results, I give you your money back and I pay for your next therapy session. I'm giving you all of this because I'm hoping that if we work together, you can be a different person in 90 days. So if budget is a concern, I do offer a payment program where you can pay for this in 2 installments of $248.50. But none of the guarantees mentioned previously apply to this payment plan, which means that you're not eligible for a refund on the first month if you've already paid for it. You, of course, can cancel at any time. You don't get charged for that, obviously, so you keep that money, but you will not be refunded for the first month. The reason why we do this is that clients who prepay the full amount are way more committed and they tend to follow through. So we like to reward those people with a much stronger guarantee. And we are, to be frank with you, looking to help clients who actually want the transformation. The only thing that I can't control is willingness and desire to change. So if you're one of those people that's willing and ready to change, and you can picture yourself in 90 days starting to feel better, starting to get your life back, then this is the offer for you, the Conquer Your OCD crash course, where it's much more than just a course, even though the course in and of itself is going to be the thing that helps you. So let's go ahead and let's finish with this. So you have 3 choices at this point, and the decision is yours. I'm going to go ahead and paint the picture for you. Over here on the left-hand side is Zach from 2016, 2017, 2018. Anxious, depressed, struggling with thoughts of suicide, struggling with intrusive thoughts, and just really not wanting to be around anymore. Really scratching my head going, what am I going to do with the rest of my life living with OCD? This might be you right now. Over here is Zach now. I like to think that this is me and my wife dancing. And I'm happy. I'm fulfilled. I live with minimal intrusive thoughts, minimal anxiety. And like you saw in those earlier slides, I'm living the life of my dreams. I married my soulmate. I've started multiple six-figure businesses. I've published a book. I've got a podcast streaming all over the world. I've traveled all over the world. I'm living my dream life. Over here, 90 days from now, is some version of you that you want. It's the person that you daydream about. It's the person that you hope you can be. It's the person that you want to be if you could just get past the struggles. And in between is 90 days. In between is 90 days. And the arrow points both ways because with OCD, I'm always saying our world is always either contracting or expanding. If it's contracting, you're more than likely over here. If it's expanding, you're more than likely over here on the right. So you have three choices. The first one is you don't do anything and you continue to suffer with intrusive thoughts and anxiety. And I'll tell you, I made that choice once. 2016, I'm like, I'm just going to push this away. I'm going to pretend that it doesn't exist. I'm going to pretend like it's not real. And I'm just going to pray that this all goes away, that this is just one big nightmare that gets better. It's not an ideal option. I've tried it. It doesn't work. I wish it did. If it did work, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. I'll tell you that. But unfortunately, it doesn't work. Option number 2 is that you look for some other service. By all means, please do it. Go out there, look for other services, see what else is available, and hopefully, right, because that's where we're at with this, is you're hoping that you can find something else that could maybe help you. But there's no guarantee. And there's definitely no guarantee like the one I'm going to give you, which is a risk-free guarantee, because no matter what, you're going to get help. And if you don't get the help that you were hoping for, you get a refund and I pay for your next therapy session. So there's really no risk, but you can look for another service. And then your last option, join the Conquer Your OCD crash course. Start your 90-day journey right now so that in 90 days, 3 months time from now, you are in a different situation. And if for some reason I'm not able to help you after 4 months, 120 days, 90 days of the course with unlimited chat support, 1 month of one-on-one coaching, I'm not able to help you, I'll give you your money back. I'll pay for your next therapy session because I don't want your money if I can't help you. It's just that simple. I want to find somebody who can. So the choice is yours. You've got 3 choices and the decision is yours. Don't do anything. Look for another service, or just join the Conquer Your OCD crash course and get started right now. So if all of this sounds good to you, you can go ahead and take a picture of this QR code. You'll be prompted to join the Conquer Your OCD crash course, and we'll get you started on your recovery journey to being a different person in 90 days. So I hope to see you in the course, and I'll talk to you soon.